scratch it out and put evangelize.
Yeah, you missed one. It's actually the last one I couldn't think of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What about you? What did the ladies come up with?
We had one person at a time, so Timothy's.
Say that again.
One person at a time, so
yep.
the Timothy's. Yep. Clear and simple. Multiplying. We said like building up leaders, and then you said like within the church, like people who are like already part of the church, like building them up, and then people who are not part of the church.
Yeah.
Reaching out to them, but yeah.
So I think I'm gonna give it to the guys.
So
it was the world, gospel clear and simple. University students, one person at a time, and the last one you guys didn't get was Great Expectations.
Great Expectations.
Oh, shucks.
Great Expectations.
Did you go?
I never thought we were gonna win anyway.
Did you go
We
with
did,
that?
Yeah.
That's probably the start of things.
It's good to read it. So today we're really going to be focusing on the tenet of one person at a time and how that plays out. And so have you guys heard of spiritual multiplication? They talk about that maybe on Impact. Have you ever heard of that term? Or?
Andre Renier came in and did a little bit of a spiel on that.
For the leadership night there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Rise Up.
Beth, have you heard of the model?
Yeah.
Spiritual multiplication. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and so for some of you it might be review, but that's good. So, the first slide says, first commandment is be fertile and multiply. The first commandment that we encounter in the Bible is to be fertile and multiply, so it's in us to multiply. So what is true physically is also true spiritually. Faith was never intended for us alone, but to be shared with everyone around us. And I remember hearing about spiritual multiplication in CCO and like how we share with one person and they share with another person. But I reflected on, like I didn't really believe it, like that sounds nice, but does that really happen? But then I kind of reflected on my own like journey in CCO and maybe even some of the journey that you guys are on. And I thought, well, it actually is happening and it's pretty exciting. I'm going to share more about that in a little bit. So, Jesus commanded multiplication. And Brooke, can you read that out from where you are?
And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am always with you to the end of the age.
Thank you, Brooke. And so that's what Jesus left us with just before he left. And I'm pretty sure this is actually the theme for World Youth Day coming up, which is pretty cool. Is to go and make disciples. Does anybody know that, or have you heard that? I think I heard that. I think that will be the theme, and it's really like the direction that the church is going is very mission focused. And I even thought about like when you prayed for me, like you talked about the message, like that I'd share the message, and even to add on that, like we're gonna share like the mission. So Jesus brought a message, but he also brought a mission, and so that's really what we're talking about. Spiritual multiplication is like the mission that's entrusted to us. So go, like in the passage there, Jesus is going, and the disciples take that seriously. It says, 2,000 years later, there are 2.2 billion Christians in the world.
Whoa.
Today, 2.2 billion people are commissioned to go. So imagine what would happen if they were all equipped and ready to carry out this commission. That's pretty exciting to think about, and that's where the faith was born. Like when Jesus entrusted the mission, and so those 12 people multiplied into 2.2 billion. So they definitely took that seriously. So a daunting task when we are adding but not when we are multiplying. We can be tempted to focus on our events at which large numbers of people are gathered. Our efforts are better spent focusing on one person at a time. So the message and mission of Jesus Christ. And I was even thinking, like in some ways, it's not quite right, but like Rise Up would almost be seen like as a large group event, proclaiming to a lot of people, but I mean, because we're CCO, like we really mission a lot, but comparing that to CCO, like we have something called discipleship, and you guys are all aware of that, and that's really like one-on-one. And I think if we had to choose, we don't need to choose, but if we had to choose between discipleship and Rise Up, I'm pretty sure CCO would say like, we want to do discipleship, like just one-on-one ministry, one person at a time, like over like a large group. Rise Up, although we can do both, which is good, and we are very mission focused at Rise Up, but like discipleship has really come to the forefront in CCO, and so really focusing on that. So we have this equation that we share with people on how it works, so maybe you guys have seen some of this. So this is if one person was really focused on adding, so like if he could evangelize 1,000 people in a day and convert them. So if one person from the day they were born could, 1,000 people every day, so they could convert 1,000 people a day, and if they do that every day of the year, so after a year that person would convert 365,000 people, which is very good. So if that person lived to be 100 years old, they could convert 36.5 million people, obviously with the help of the Holy Spirit, which is an awesome number, but still falls short of our goal that we talked about earlier. One of the tenets is reaching the world. So this is multiplication. So this is if one person shared the message and the mission with 2 people, and so they'd have 2 years to kind of build them up and send them out. So this one person shares with 2 other people, so there'd be, after 2 years there'd be that person, and then there'd be 2 more, so there'd be 3 altogether. But if you actually do the math, if one person keeps on doing that and all the people that he shares with are doing that, so after 4 years there'd be 9 people. After 10 years, 243 people, which would be my whole family. And after 20 years, there would be 59,000. After 30 years, 14 million. After 32 years, we'd have 43 million, which is much more than in Canada. And after 36 years, there would be 387 million. And then after 42 years, there would be 10.46 billion people would have heard the message. So if we actually followed that model, we don't follow it obviously to T, but we kind of live out of that expectation that this is how we do ministry. So then you actually could reach the whole world like within somebody's lifespan. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So one of the scriptures that really guides the way for us is 2 Timothy 2:2, and it says, Aaron, actually, do you want to read that one out, please?
Sure. And what you have heard from me through many witnesses, entrust to faith people who will be able to teach others as well.
And so that's really a model that we follow. And so if one of the girls wants to draw it on a piece of paper, one of the guys, we just do this little diagram. Have you guys seen like the diagram with this, that we do like just 5 circles? You've maybe seen it on Impact, but maybe Aaron, you haven't seen that before. Maybe Beth, have you seen it before? So we'll just draw it out just to review it if anybody hasn't seen it. So I actually underlined it. Like it's basically like 5 generations, but we'll just walk through that together. And so in this passage, so who is writing this? Who's writing that? Paul. So Paul is writing to Timothy. So first of all, write just Paul down on a piece of paper and then make a circle around him. And so Paul says, and what you have heard from me through many witnesses. So who heard from Paul? Timothy. But who did Timothy hear from?
The witnesses.
Witnesses. So Paul shared with people, witnesses. And then the witnesses shared with who? With Timothy. And then what does he tell Timothy? What does Paul say to Timothy?
Entrust to faithful people.
And then what should
And share with others.
and then the faithful people shouldn't share it with others. So there's actually like within this little verse, like there's like 5 generations. So Paul shares with Timothy, but Timothy heard through many witnesses. So the witnesses, that's how Timothy heard. And then Paul says to Timothy, entrust the faithful people, and those faithful people should share it with others. So there's 5 generations. And then, so do you guys see it on the paper there, Brooke and Aaron, if the other girls haven't seen it yet? So yeah, within that, and that's really what we try to do. And I was reflecting, like I was saying before, like reflecting on the spiritual multiplication in CCO. And so, for myself, I heard from a guy named Andrew Lockhart, and Andrew Lockhart is the brother of the president, Jeff Lockhart, and you maybe heard Jeff speak before. So I'm not actually sure, but I'm just saying probably Andrew heard of CCO through Jeff when Jeff got involved. So Jeff would have invited Andrew. So there's Jeff, and then there's Andrew, and then Andrew reached out to me. He's just one of my classmates and invited me to do a discovery study. So then I came to the picture, and then I got involved in Impact and got involved in CCO as staff, and then I reached out to Aaron at the Gathering one. Was it the Gathering? Yeah, it was the Gathering at the time, right? Or was it just
Gathering?
Yeah, so I reached out to Aaron at the Gathering, and then Aaron, you reached out to Brooke, invited him out to play sports, and then Brooke got involved, and now Brooke, you're reaching out to people. So that we're actually, like in a short time that we've known each other, like there's 6 generations there. And then I thought of like even one like for the girls, so there's Jen Bale, I think, maybe you guys all know Jen, and so she's on staff, and I think like Christy influenced her a lot. I don't know if you know that or not, but so Christy would have reached out to Jen, and I think Jen reached out to, was it a girl named Megan?
Yeah.
And then Megan invited you
Yeah.
to something, and then you reached out to Kaylee, and then did Kaylee reach out to Allie, and then did Allie reach out to Megan, or
Kind of,
kind
yeah.
of. So, but like within a short time, there, like that's 7 generations, and this chain is going on like all across Canada, and even to think that you guys, like, you're not in a sense, like, not at the bottom is a lower position, but like there's people under you, so they kind of have that expectations that the guys and girls that you're reaching out to, that they're going to be multiplying, and it's going to keep on going, and it's already happening right now. And so just there's often like a warning like we give like with CCO that you're not building up disciples to build up your own programs, but because it is good for them and the kingdom. So like when we reach out to these people, it's good for their own faith and their own salvation. It's not like something that we need to like kind of get like a notch under our belt and like look at all the people under me, but it's because it's good for them to know Christ, and it's going to change their life. And so like that's the real reason why we do it. But I mean, there is this model that we follow, but just that we don't fall into that trap of trying to do it like kind of as a notch under our belt. And so there's this quote that I wanted to share with you guys. It's from, I think an atheist wrote it, but this great evangelist read it, and he was just like very inspired. So he just committed his life to the message. And actually, Brooke, I'm going to ask you to read it out. So this is an atheist that wrote this quote, and I think it actually applies to to you guys, especially like as student leaders, because like as staff, like this is something like in a sense, this isn't quite right, but we have to do like as part of our job, like to share the message. But like you guys, you really give more than you have to. Like all you have to do is be students. Like you don't in a sense have to do this, but you make this sacrifice. So you'll see that your sacrifice is well worth it. So it's just the one in the pen here. And so it's written by an atheist.
The following article spurred C.T. Study, a famous evangelist, to all out dedication to Christ. It was written by an atheist. If I firmly believed, as millions say they do, that the knowledge and practice of religion in this life influences destiny in another, then religion would mean to me everything. I would cast away earthly thoughts and feelings as vanity. Religion would be my first waking thought, and my last image before sleep sank me into unconsciousness. I should labor in its cause alone. I would take thought for the morrow of eternity alone. I would esteem one soul gained for heaven worth a life of suffering. Earthly consequences would never stay my hand or seal my lips. Earth, its joys and its griefs, would occupy no moment of my thoughts. I would strive to look upon eternity alone and on the immortal souls around me, soon to be everlastingly happy or everlastingly miserable. I would go forth to the world and preach to it in season and out of season, and my text would be, "What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul?"
It's a very intense quote, so that's what I'll leave you with, and you guys are really living that out, like as student leaders, that like you have your obligation to your studies, but to go beyond that, and the commitment you guys make to changing people's lives. So I just want to honor you for that. that concludes the presentation.
What it is.